Welcome, everybody, to episode 4 of the Thundercrap podcast, where we forge through the shitstorm that was WCW Thunder. I am your master of ceremonies, Josh Kiser, and I am joined today by staggerly Kyle Hoagland.
You have only so many that you're allowed to do that before I'm going to get sick of it. But what's going on, everybody?
And we got, of course, the brain, the people's champion, Josh Haddix.
Dang, I was going to say that the actual second people's champion, which we'll get to later.
We will get to that later. Of course, we are here. We are breaking down week-by-week episodes of WCW Thunder, starting with the very first one and rolling on through. And we are on the 4th episode. It is January 29th. It is 1998. And Thunder is already different. The opening, I don't know if it caught you guys by surprise like it did for me. I kind of clicked play and I sat back and I had to do like a double take. I had to rewind it already. I'm like, wait, that's not the opening I've seen. Before it had like the Thunder logo with puddles. All of a sudden you see the Hollywood sign and it was a bunch of NWO guys. So like, I don't know if it was just me, but I kind of felt like maybe it was like the NWO takeover episode or something.
This is what I'm used to seeing. This is what when I first started getting into wrestling and started watching Thunder, this was actually the look that I was more accustomed to. Not just this, but obviously the set we'll talk about later. But the actual starting of it, you're right though. It did look like did something happen where like NWO just like now owns Thunder?
Yeah, it felt very pro NWO. It wasn't just like the other one kind of had everybody in it, and this it had a Hollywood sign and. It was all the names over Hollywood, and I felt like it was mostly members of the NWO, so it's a little thrown for a loop there.
I feel bad.
I think it was funny that it only took 3 episodes before they just rehashed all of it.
Everything.
I feel bad for the guy that lost his job opening that gate when people would walk down the ramp.
As you'll notice, not only does the opening change, of course, you get Tony Schiavone. He welcomes us in as Thunder rolls through Memphis live. And then we look at the set. It is no longer the Mayan temple. It is the set, Kyle, like you said, that you and I used to from watching Thunder. Sort of a little more kind of on how Nitro was. It felt a little more industrial. They kind of got it's a lot of stainless steel structure and stuff. It looks a lot slicker than that fucking Mayan temple thing. It looks Legends of the Hidden Temple thing that just didn't fit anything really.
It looks like they melted down a bunch of the steel stairs and made a second Nitro set, but then obviously reshaped a couple things to give it its own swagger.
I gotta appreciate the fact that they just cut bait early on, realized it was a garbage set. They probably spent a lot of money on the set, a lot of money on design. Bunch of people lost their jobs over it, including, to your point, Haddix, the guys who opened the gates. We move on, and that's what we're going to do. We go to the commentary team. It's Schiavone, Heenan, and Marshall again, so it looks like they're kind of sticking with that group now. And they're discussing, of course, is there more problems with the NWO? There's more rift going on. Nash, Hogan, and Savage are kind of having a feud. All kinds of things. They don't know who's going to be with who. There's a lot of fighting inside the family that is the NWO. They mentioned that there's outsider rules for the tag titles, so...
it's Wolfpack rules.
Oh, Wolfpack rules. You're right. Wolfpack rules. So apparently, Kevin Nash and Conan will be defending the titles tonight instead of Nash and Hall. I guess they put their own Freebird type rules here into play. And of course, they said Dusty Rhodes is going to make a statement because he is now the newest member of the NWO. For those of you who may have missed the sold out pay-per-view, which of course happened the previous Saturday. Dusty Rhodes comes out in the Scott Hall Larry Zbyszko match, backing Larry Zbyszko, while Spicoli was there backing Scott Hall because he is apparently the honorary NWO member now. Dusty Rhodes, of course, turning heel, turns on turns on Larry Zbyszko, turns on the WCW fan base, and we're going to find out exactly what he was thinking later tonight. And one more thing they're letting us know, Hogan and Sting is signed for Super Brawl, so now the decision is made for the title. I think it was what we all assumed, the two would just be wrestling in a rematch, but now it's official. But they said, who's going to be refereeing? We will hear from Nick Patrick tonight, who, of course, was part of that entire debacle that was Starrcade 1997.
The entire debacle that he did nothing wrong with.
Well, in kayfabe, he did nothing wrong. In real life, he fucked up big time, but that's another point. Let's go to our opening bout. Of course, the United States title is on the line. DDP defending his title against the number one contender, Sick Boy.
I'll never understand how they come up with these number one contenderships, but I mean, once again, Sick Boy, sure, why not?
Yeah, why not? Sick Boy.
Why not have one of the underlings of Raven's flock? Not maybe Raven.
Yeah, I mean, at least Raven would make a little bit of sense. He actually lost his match against Chris Benoit at Sold Out, so he doesn't even necessarily be deserving, but why not throw one of his jabroni underlings, to your point, Kyle, one of his minions, Sick Boy. Here he is getting his shot at the United States title. Congratulations, I guess, Sick Boy, on getting that. You guys, it was funny. I didn't really pay much attention to it, but once I read it in both your guys' notes, I was like, well, yeah, I don't know why I didn't think about it. You both called out the fact that DDP is wrestling in jeans.
Dude, horrible. I hate that John Cena wrestles in jorts. The only thing worse than jorts is actual jeans.
I don't know. I almost feel like I'd rather see jeans than jorts, just because nobody wears jorts. At least people do.
Jason Miller wears jorts.
It's true.
No one knows who Jason Miller is.
Shout out to Jason.
Shout out to Jason, though. But yeah, I put in the notes DP was wearing jeans before it was cool, a.k.a. Dean Ambrose. Which, does Dean Ambrose, I mean, he's been injured. Is he still wearing jeans when he wrestles?
Yeah, he still wrestles in jeans. Yeah, so, I mean, I guess I think Baron Corbin wrestles in jeans. Like, there are some people that do it. DDP might have been one of the first, now that I'm, kind of thinking about it, because I don't think, back before this era, wrestlers wrestled in wrestling attire, and then they kind of changed it up.
There was a biker wrestler, you know what I mean, where it would make sense that he would walk out in spandex. He would wear jeans for that, jeans and whatever.
I mean, I guess boots. Maybe Hillbilly Jim or something wrestling in overalls. But
this denim, as long as denim is applied, I feel like that applies to this.
That said, we're going to get our first sign of the night, and it's a sign that says we will work for quail, and the quail is crossed out, and it's actually duck. And if that's any indication, Memphis, Tennessee did not bring their A game for signs. I forget where we were last week. The signs were plenty and awesome. This week, very weak, so I apologize ahead of time for the signs.
Were we in Huntsville, Alabama last week?
I think we might have been in Huntsville, A game, Memphis, Tennessee. They're not so much into the signs. That said, speaking of signs, Mr. Lodi of the flock and the rest of the flock have front row ringside seats, and I'm going to be calling out Lodi's signs throughout the evening because his were at least worth mentioning at times.
Well, he was also a terrible wrestler, so the only thing you're going to mention Lodi, but I don't remember Lodi being in a match.
Yeah, he wrestled a little bit because didn't he do that whole thing where he was sort of like a closet homosexual or something, and he had the lollipops, and he kind of was tagging with that other guy. I really
have no idea.
I forget.
I don't remember. I personally do not remember Lodi being in a match. Honestly, I don't. I don't remember him being in any type of actual storyline. I just remember him always being the sign guy.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to look this up while we're doing it. But that said, there's a second sign of the night. It says, "I hate this part." I don't know what that means, but worth calling out. And then probably one of the harshest, this is right up there with the Mike Tenay likes gay luchador wrestling, is the new wuss order. So they're really calling out the NWO there.
It doesn't even have a good ring to it.
No, it doesn't. As far as this match goes, I think the highlight of the match might have been when Bobby Heenan thinks that his name is Sick, first name Sick, last name Boy. He calls him Mr. Boy. As for the match, I thought it was okay in general. Sick Boy actually looked all right for being kind of a younger talent here. Of course, DDP has really come along, Kyle, since the matches we watched when we were doing the Monday Night Tours here in 1995, 1996. I think he is really improved in the ring. And, he's going to win this with like a pop-up diamond cutter, which, the RKO out of nowhere sort of became a trendy thing a few years ago. I mean, the diamond cutter out of nowhere was sort of the thing back in the day. And DDP really innovated how he would get the move off. And the move was over with this crowd. DDP's over with this crowd. He's going to win. And I'm going to give this 2.25 stars. I actually thought it was a good opening match. Like I said, Sick Boy, I thought did okay in his role here. Showed that he earned that number one contender match by really holding his own for a period of time in it.
I gave it 2 stars. I agree with everything you said, Kiser. I thought it was a pretty decent match, especially with some of the turds we've had. I think the best part, and I thought you were going to say this earlier, was when he went to go kick him and he like rolled out of the way, which I don't even know if DDP like did that on purpose or not. And then he like whiffed and like fell backwards. Did you guys catch that?
I think that was meant to happen.
I mean, I'm sure it was meant to, but DDP almost made it look like he sold it real well because he almost made it seem like he was just rolling out of the way. But I like laughed for like a good minute after that. I was like, what a great wrestling move that is.
I give this 2.25 stars. I actually had in my notes too that it looked like Sick Boy slipped on a banana peel a la cartoon style, which I thought was hilarious. I think there was one weird point in the match where I think DDP loves his 360 clotheslines, and I don't think Sick Boy was aware of how much he enjoys those. And I think Sick Boy was ready for a clothesline, and then he spun around and then didn't think he was getting a clothesline, so then he moved, and then he kind of got grazed because he was out of position. It kind of looked weird. But yeah, I mean, the Diamond Cutter is more over than DDP is. It's really
sort of
made
like
DDP,
Jake the Snake and the DDT.
Yeah, exactly. Like DDP is an okay wrestler, and it's crazy to know that the guy's like in his late 40s at this point, if I remember correctly. He's an old guy, and he's only getting better, even though he physically he would be way past his prime for a wrestler. But yeah, I think the Diamond Cutter was more popular than DDP ever was. But DDP was pretty popular. But yeah, the crowd was definitely into it for DDP being in it 2.25.
Just to follow up on Lodi, Kyle, Lodi and Lenny Lane. Do you remember that? They were a tag team. They called themselves the West Hollywood Blondes. They were a gay Californian duo with pink trunks and flamboyant haircuts, who were later revealed to be brothers. I think they probably got some heat for having the homosexual end, and yeah, they were protesting. They had protests, etc. So that's probably why they switched to the brother gimmick instead.
If only they would have known better. If only the WWF had done some sort of homosexual angle years before, maybe they would have known better, right?
Right. That said, Haddix, one thing I want to talk to you about, we alluded to it in the opening. DDP, of course, the People's Champion, and you had a little bit of beef about this comment.
Dude, it was. So I never realized I knew that he was a, liked wrestler. But I mean, going into the crowd afterwards, kind of like hanging out with the people. I didn't realize that he did that gimmick or that kind of thing. But yeah, when he said that, was The Rock in WWE at the time or WWF at the time?
Yeah, it's 98.
Yep.
So did they just straight steal that from them, or was he not even really going by that whole?
Well, I think at that point, I don't think The Rock really even had a major title in January of 98. If he was maybe a tag champion,
he had been Intercontinental on and off at that point. Yeah, I think he was winning that in 97, I think. He may not have been the People's Champion yet at that point, calling himself that, but to the point, it wasn't like it was original for either of them. Muhammad Ali was known as the People's Champion, so it was that actually he may have been the originator of that phrase, so to speak. So they're all going to use each other's gimmicks, whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
After this, we are going to get a J.J. Dillon interview with Mike Tenay. And of course, he comes out and he says basically that the jackknife powerbomb has been banned. They made this announcement on Nitro. Of course, this is in response to what happened at Sold Out. Nash and the Giant had their match. Nash is going to throw coffee in the Giant's face, and then he's going to finish it up with a power bomb. The problem is between the coffee being slippery and I think the Giant not ready for it or something, he kind of drops him on his neck. It's an ugly spot. It does not look good. And I think the Giant is actually hurt here. I don't know how serious it was. Obviously, he comes back and has a career for like 20 more years, so it's not career ending. But at the time, they may not have known the seriousness of it. So in kayfabe, they do ban the jackknife powerbomb. Kevin Nash uses it on Nitro on Raid Trailer. So JJ's out here basically saying that they mean business. This is no laughing matter. And there's a $50,000 fine to Kevin Nash. So I guess it's supposed to hit the pocketbooks. They're really throwing out these fake numbers and fake fines. If we're going to play
it's 10 times more money than striking a referee by Scott Steiner.
Right. Yeah. That said, did Kevin Nash not just because he won that match with the Giant, wasn't there a $1.5 million like they each bet like on themselves for $1.5 million, right? Or was that just like guaranteeing that they had the match?
It was a retainer. So in order for him he either would have had the match with the Giant or he would have had to fork over $1.5 million. And then for the Giant, he would have had to give Nash $1.5 million if the Giant struck him and thus canceling the match.
So the winner did not get $1.5 million in the match.
No, if the match went as was, there was no money that took place.
So the $50,000 is going to hurt Kevin Nash this week.
Well, it's gonna hurt Hogan because obviously that's who's paying for it.
That's who's going to pay for it, of course. We're going to move to our next match. It is Ming versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan. With a run-in from Castrol D to GTX because the promo just goes over the ring, covers everything for a second, and just shows you the production level of Thunder is just not up to par with some of the others. That said, Duggan still gets the crowd to chant USA, USA. I think Jim Duggan is eternally over with every crowd. It just never fails.
Hey, how can you chant
USA?
Yeah. First of all, you're in the South. Like you chanting USA, you might as well, as long as you're in south of the Mason-Dixon line, you're on everyone's side chanting USA.
This guy Jim Duggan's not a very good wrestler, and the crowd loves him. They just absolutely love this guy. This match was about what you'd expect for Ming versus Duggan. They kind of just brawl with like sloppy fists and stuff like that. Of course, Ming's going to give him a nice shoulder rub at one point. And during the match, this is the first Lodi sign of the night, and it says, "This is deja vu all over again." I'm not sure if that means anything in particular. Maybe this match has happened in the past. I feel like Ming versus Duggan has probably happened on Nitro and stuff in years past. And the match is going to end pretty much how you'd expect it to with Jimmy Hart out there. He's going to distract the ref. He's going to throw the 2x4, which he throws way over Ming's head into Duggan's hands. So Duggan's going to break it over Ming. You think, oh, maybe Duggan's going to win the match. No, Jimmy Hart's going to keep distracting until Ming's able to get the Tongan death grip onto Duggan. That's going to get the win for Ming. I'm going to give this a star and 3/4. It was just like a sloppy match with two guys who were just kind of bruisers of sorts. What'd you guys think of it?
I gave it 2 stars. Basically similar thing. Two big dudes throwing some fists at each other. I did enjoy I've never really seen many Jim Duggan matches, or however the hell you say his name. But I just thought some of the antics were funny. You know, him doing the chant, like all that kind of stuff. But yeah,
that's a classic Jim Duggan match. Yeah, It's USA chants. It was comical. Yeah. It's him. Giving his thumb out with his tongue hanging out and running around in circles. Yeah, that's a.
But other than that, yeah, it was just it was a match. So
I also gave it 2 stars. I think Duggan pretty much just busted out all of his tried and true, over methods. He basically did everything that he would normally do. He's probably done it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times in his career. Ming is the no-selling badass that he is. He got hit in the back with a 2x4. I think he went down to one knee for about 5 seconds, and then he was fine. Tongan death grip for the win. But no, I think it was. I believe it's a 2-star just because it's about as good as a match as these guys would have. They're not going to give you a match that's going to wow you. I think they went in there knowing what would work with those two. and they put on a match that I think was appropriate for what both their skill sets are. So 2 stars for me.
On an unrelated or semi-unrelated note, 8 years later, almost to the day, within like a month, Jim Duggan is going to wrestle Edge on Raw. So,
good God,
yeah, right? Who would have thought that would ever have happened?
I would also assume that Jim Duggan also went had American flag and the 2x4.
Oh, I'm sure, absolutely. After this, we are going to get our WCW Saturday Night promo. Kyle, they just don't cut it like they did in 95 and 96.
Last week they did an okay one, but I think it's because I know all this is pre-recorded, or at least the Saturday nights are, but last week they at least showed some footage,
clips from it,
slow-mo clips from it. So now I was okay with that. But I mean, I do miss the whole pop-up cardboard cutout look they were doing before, just because it's so poorly done. But this is like, it's so overly produced, I hate it.
Yeah, it's just an overly produced like graphic, and then they just tell you, and they're like, yeah, Hacksaw's going to be wrestling, Mongo will be here, Eddie Guerrero's going to be all wrestling, and the main event is Bill Goldberg versus Ming, which I actually thought that could be a pay-per-view worthy opponent for Goldberg. Like, for a guy who's still kind of, making it through there, I feel like him beating Ming would be like a big deal.
Didn't he beat Ming like 3 weeks ago on Thunder?
Did he? Did he beat Ming already?
Yeah.
No,
I swear to God, he fought Ming like week 1.
No, he didn't. It was Mongo.
Yeah, he beat Mongo.
There was no. Then he was supposed to have a match
with
Chavo. He was supposed to have a match with Chavo, but that never happened.
And then
last week he fought Barry Windham. Yeah, Kendall Windham.
Yeah.
You're thinking of Giant, who fought.
Yes, Giant fought Ming.
Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
But being a fucking idiot.
I do think. Don't you guys think that like Ming's could be pushed as like a little bit of a monster? I think it'd be like a solid feud for a guy who's only been wrestling now for like since September or so.
That would be a true test for Goldberg. It would be like, hey, he's going to take on a guy who does have a decent win-loss record, who's a veteran. And I remember when he was either the U.S. champion or the world champion, Ming got like another kind of like steady push where he. Yeah, like he was squashing everyone left and right. So then when Ming got a chance at Goldberg, everyone was thinking like, oh, this would be the guy that probably has the closest chance to take down Goldberg, which was Ming. And so yeah, it's kind of weird that he's like,
jobbing to him in his like 12th match on
Saturday night.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought that could have been a better. This like a main event on Saturday night right now for Goldberg should be like Goldberg versus the Barbarian or
Disco Inferno,
yeah, something like that. Or Chavo finally gets his match, something like that. But here we are. Anyways, we spent way too long talking about Saturday Night promo, much longer than they gave it on the show. So we'll move on to the next match. It is Raven versus Marty Jannetty. Raven's going to open things up by sitting in the corner like he likes to do, and he's going to get on the mic. Basically says that this match upcoming is Raven's Rules, which means anything goes, apparently. And I find this interesting that they're in a scenario right now where the NWO is getting fined, WCW is getting fined, you can't put your hands on referees, you gotta, they're really laying down the law, but somehow Raven and his flock just kind of do their own thing, and everybody's cool with it.
Yeah, like he has he does mention or I think the commentary also said that Raven does have a contract that allows him to set Raven's rules on his matches only, and obviously, in order for him to get like a title shot or for anybody to wrestle with him, they also have to agree to go by the rules. If they don't want to, then it's kind of like one of those things where like Raven doesn't get to wrestle if nobody wants to wrestle him. That type of thing. It's not like they're going to be like, okay, you're going to fight Raven. Oh, and Raven's going to do Raven's rules. They said something along the lines of like, it's completely voluntary who fights Raven.
Well, Marty Jannetty volunteered his tribute tonight. He's going to come out. We get the second Lodi sign of the night. It says, "You are stupid." So I feel like it's already, leaps and bounds above anything that Memphis crowd has come up with. The flock, for being a bunch of, kind of scrubs, they must have some money because they literally all have the front row. So they either, WCW pays them well, Raven pays them well, somebody does because, props to them for getting the front row seats. And as for this match, it was, solid. Marty Jannetty is a good worker, and Raven is a good worker, and I think it shows in this match. The the whole Ravens rules will come into play because they're going to get a chair out there, and there's a drop toe hold into the chair at one point. And the match is going to eventually end when Raven's going to drop kick the chair into Marty Jannetty, followed up with the even flow DDT, which they don't refer to as the even flow. I don't know if it's not called that or they don't remember, or they just don't call it at the time. I gave it 2 stars. I thought it was solid, nothing groundbreaking, but the two of them, they both have some talent here.
I gave it 2.5 stars. We kind of touched on this last week. I didn't really know who Jannetty was other than the name. But that's 2 weeks in a row that I've actually thought he looked pretty good out there. He looks like a solid wrestler, although I feel like he's just jobbing to whoever he wrestles. But other than that, it was a decent match.
Yeah, if you want to see some good Jannetty stuff, you need to look at, really his run with Michaels as the Rockers in the early 90s, late 80s in WWF. There's some good stuff. You can see some good tag team wrestling between the two of them.
And I think Michaels and Jannetty had like a match of the year in like 92 when they were fighting each other for the Intercontinental title. When they were actually feuding, they actually had a couple of really good matches. I also gave it 2.5 stars. I'm still really weirded out by Jannetty's music. I don't know whether or not it's copywritten, so they played over it with this like real menacing, evil type of fucking music. Because it doesn't sound like the music that's playing does not sound like the guy coming out.
Fits at him. Yeah, he kind of has this upbeat, it's almost like a pop rock sort of music is what he should be coming out to. But
instead, he almost sounds like it's like a more menacing
like Sid Vicious
version
or something.
Sid Vicious type of music. And I'm like, this doesn't fit whatsoever. I had to give credit that Jannetty basically sold getting thrown into a pose as if Raven was the Big Show.
Yeah, and he does lunge into it, like flies into it, and really
you can easily get hurt that way. There's no way to undersell throwing yourself into a ring post. Jannetty actually he has kind of 2 finishers that I consider finishers or signature moves. I think one, obviously the rocker dropper, I think is his main finisher, but he also has that top rope fist that he does from the top rope, and that was their finisher when they were on the Rockers. And he does this to Raven. I actually thought he was going to win, but he kicked out after 2. So I thought that was cool. I would have actually given us a higher rating if Marty sold the even flow DDT a little bit better. It didn't. The DDT, I just remember Raven's DDT being like a spike DDT. Like he goes down hard with the guy down to the ground. It's not like you're
almost like how the Scorpion Death Drop is, but like the standard DDT version of it.
Right, exactly.
The way Sting delivers that.
Exactly. So that's kind of how I was like, I was looking forward to seeing the even flow, and then realized this looked like a Jake the Snake DDT. So 2.5 stars.
After this, we are going to get a Slim Jim promo, followed up by them showing we got celebrities this week in Memphis. It's Jerry Lee Lewis in the crowd. He's sitting behind the Flock, so apparently the Flock more relevant than Jerry Lee Lewis right now.
Also, funny, not funny, but Jerry Lee Lewis still alive, 82 years old.
Really? I would have guessed he was older than that.
82 years young, still kicking it.
Yeah, well, that's good for him. The following match, Yugi Nagata with Sonny Ono versus Bill Goldberg. So it's our Goldberg match of the night. They're still calling him Bill Goldberg. I'm curious when they finally just refer to him as Goldberg, but for the time, still calling him Bill.
I would assume when the chants begin. So far, we haven't got the Goldberg chants yet. Yeah. I think once everyone starts going Goldberg, I think they're like, fuck it. Bill now just sounds like a nerdy dude. Like, Bill Goldberg sounds like a guy that should do your taxes. Goldberg.
All right, Dwayne Johnson, dude. Taking Dwayne's comment right there. Come on.
Did Dwayne say that? Sorry. I bet.
Goldberg's debut on Raw, it was the fans were chanting Goldberg, and he goes, you guys all want to, something along the lines like, you guys are interested in The Rock's accountant, I forget, something Goldberg, I forget what he called, he comes up with another Jewish first name or something.
Hey, that's why he's the people's champ, all right?
That's right. That said, we get our 4th sign of the night. Who needs Mike Tyson when you have Bill Goldberg? So,
amen to that.
There you go, Memphis crowd. Work better on your signs. This match is about what you'd expect from a Goldberg match. He is trying to kind of change it up a little bit. He's doing a little bit kind of takedowns, some sort of leg sweep takedown, submission moves. So he almost is trying to put a little bit of that UFC sort of brawling style in there, like sort of like Ken Shamrock-esque, if you will. And Haddix, you pointed out that he actually also added a choke to his arsenal, where he just chokes the guy.
That's why I gave it such a good rating this week.
This match is going to be shortly over with the spear and a jackhammer. I gave it a star and 3/4. That is pretty much, to me, the standard level of a Goldberg match. If it's a spear jackhammer and nothing gets fucked up, it's a star and 3/4, and that's what I gave it.
I gave it 2, and I put this in my notes here, and maybe it's because I know that they're going leading towards this streak, and he becomes obviously a lot bigger of a wrestler. I don't know how it would have felt at the time, like this guy's just coming out and just owning people. So I gave it a 2 for that reason, and also because he did add the choke to his arsenal. I mean, he just gets better every week, guys.
I can't wait for him to actually have a match with somebody where it's not just going to be a squash. I gave it a star and 3/4. This is your standard Goldberg match. I think he also introduced us to that. It's kind of like that spinning kind of front locked neck breaker. It looks weird. It almost looks like Yugi Nagata was doing a move, but then Goldberg's like, "Don't worry, I'll take this from here." And just did a swing. It almost looked like I don't know if it was just kind of like a spinning tackle to the ground, but it looked like a neck breaker. I'm not quite sure. I just know that it's in the wrestling video game, so I know that It
wasn't a botched move. It was actually a move.
Yeah, it was an actual move, and I think it's also coined for Goldberg, because I just remember WCW NWO Revenge. That was one of his strong grapples. So
it's probably because they're what they would watch it and they're like, we need a 8th move for him, and well, he did this move kind of one time. All right, put it in the video game.
Yeah, it's like a twisting. It's like a twisting takedown. But yeah, I thought it looked cool. I think if he just goes in and spears and jackhammers and doesn't screw it up, I think it's basically a guaranteed 1.5 to 1 3/4 stars. A 2-star would happen if maybe he wrestled with the guy that he was wrestling.
He actually had a wrestling match.
Right. I can't wait till. Oh no, that was Nitro when he fights Regal. But yeah, they had that match where they pretty much where Regal kind of outs Goldberg as a guy who can't wrestle, but I think that was Nitro. So unfortunately we're not going to talk about that.
All right. Well, we will be talking about Nitro right now, because we're going to get a replay from Nitro, our first replay of the night. And I got to say, the last couple of weeks, we gave him a lot of shit for that, especially with that first week of Thunder, where it felt like a replay show where we had so many replays.
It was also an extra hour too, so that might have been the reason.
That was
too.
part of it, but even the second week, the show opened up. It was replay before the opening bout. Here, we've had 3 or 4 matches. Now we get our first replay of the night, and it's
that's because Macho Man was taking a dump and he couldn't get out in time for his match.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of Macho Man, he is in this replay. He is basically talking shit about the NWO. Talking about Hogan and Nash. Meanwhile, in the background, Louis Spicolli celebrating his victory over Juventud Guerrera, who looks motionless on the ground. So congrats to Louis.
I feel like I gotta go back and look up that match, because I don't feel like Spicolli won. I feel like he was beating him and was because I honestly think Macho Man just came out in the middle of the match. I don't think the match actually ended.
Oh, it's very possible, but either way, I like to believe that Louis Spicolli just won the WCW World Heavyweight title against Juventud in the background, the way he's celebrating. So Hogan's going to come out basically talking, and Macho Man says, we all have different thoughts. Sometimes we're a big family. Sometimes we're going to disagree, but we love each other in the end. And if you're going to be part of this team, you got to play the whole game. Macho Man basically says, I don't need you guys. I don't want to. I'm going to do my own thing on my own. And Hogan, you haven't basically been the same since you lost the title. You can't. You don't have it anymore, something to that effect. So, a lot of dissension in the NWO right now. We're hoping Louis Spicolli can kind of tie everyone back together, though, because
he needs to be the leader.
He really is. And I gotta admit, I know we kind of joked about him for the first week, but he is really growing on me as an entertaining kind of jobber in the background for this.
I'm watching the match right now. I'm finding out if Louis Spicolli actually pulled off a victory here. But go ahead, keep talking, but I will update you.
Oh, well, okay, perfect. after this, we're going to get our Scott Hall promo. He's going to come out. And yet again, Scott Hall is going to get on the microphone, and the microphone's like turned down or off or something like that. This is like, I know they're having production issues with video and audio a lot, but like I feel like Scott Hall gets it more than anyone else. They do let us know that Macho Man and Lex are going to be wrestling in a no disqualification match at Super Brawl. I don't know about you, Haddix. I have a feeling that no DQ is going to involve some Hogan and Nash and NWO shenanigans when they have this match against Lex.
I can only imagine, because what is the reason they're making it no DQ?
Right.
Like, there's no reason other than they want that to be able to happen.
I'll be curious to see if it's Macho Man, if it's them turning on Macho Man fully, or if it's them helping Macho Man and this is all big ploy.
Yeah,
so it will be interesting. Scott Hall's wearing the 6-pack shirt here. It's got the pool ball with the 6 on it, and we're actually going to see this a lot. Every NWO member tonight is wearing the
Dude, I was just about to say that. Yeah. I didn't recognize it at first, and then after that, I'm like, well, shit, everyone has it on.
They're all wearing it, and this is X-Pac, or Six, as he was known in WCW. This was his T-shirt. It was actually one of the hottest selling shirts outside of like the NWO shirt and like a Sting shirt, maybe. I think people thought it was a cool looking shirt. I kind of like it. I thought it was a cool looking shirt. For as far as wrestling shirts go, I think they were all wearing it though. He'd been hurt and out for a little while, and I think they were all wearing it tonight as like in solidarity, like supporting him. Dusty actually gives him a shout out at one point. I don't know if we're ever going to see him because it's shortly hereafter that he is released / quit. I forget exactly how he was.
I mean, it kind of depends on who you ask. I think he was released though, or either that or he asked to be released.
Yeah, so he's gone soon here, maybe April-ish or so. He is officially gone, and of course he returns. And, that's when he joins Degeneration X. So that's what the shirt's all about. Long story short there. Back to Scott Hall's promo. He's going to get on there talking about how, of course, it sold out. He showed up for that decision on Hogan and Sting getting the world title rematch. He was also part of it to be called out there. He won World War III, which in years past has either given you the world championship or has granted you a number one contendership, sort of like the Royal Rumble. And basically,
Hoagie brought that up last week, right, Hoagie?
Yeah.
Did you bring that up last week? How he won that
and nothing's happened. And they basically said this, and Piper basically said that you got to stick it. You're not getting your shot. And Hall's obviously pissed about it, and I agree. That's kind of bullshit.
But I've always was curious. I've always thought that the guy who won World War III had his title match at Starrcade.
I don't know if they always did that. I know a couple years it was like that. They only had World War III 4 times, maybe 5 times. One time the world title was decided from it. A couple, like Nash won it. And that's when
I know when Savage won it, he won the title.
Yeah, Savage won the title. I think the Giant wins it one year. Does he win the title maybe?
Or Lex. I can't remember. I know Hall wins it, never gets his title shot. I know Nash wins it, ends up beating Goldberg at Starrcade.
Dude, spoilers. Come on, man. We haven't
got spoilers, bro.
Jeez.
Jesus Christ, guys.
Who's this Goldberg?
15 years ago.
I know. You know what, Hoagie?
20 years ago.
You're kind of like Joe Pesci and the NWO. You're stabbing more people in the back than anyone with your spoilers here.
Oh, by the way, Louis Piccoli lost the match by DQ because Macho Man came out and pile drove Hoovy and then started his rant about the NWO.
Well,
so Louis Piccoli did get the loss.
He still looked okay with the loss. He took it like a champ. Dusty's going to join Scott Hall out here, guys. He's going to, kind of cut his promo on the NWO and says he talks shit about Tony Schiavone. Actually says he carried him for so long, which Lee Marshall sticks up for him and says, "You don't have to take that, Tony." So Stagger Lee always looking out for his friends, which is nice. And my favorite part about this whole Dusty promo is when he says something about, basically calls out the marks on the internet, which it's 1998. The internet's not super popular yet with wrestling boards and all that. For him to call out the marks on the internet, that made me laugh. And I feel like it could still ring true. Here we are 20 years later, just being marks on the internet. And then he's going to ramble a little bit towards the end of this promo. They're actually, Haddix, you noticed it as well. They try to play him off, like they play the music to kind of like just end the segment because he's sort of rambling. and he basically tells him to cut the music and tries to keep going on his promo.
I think he said, and one more thing, like 5 times. It made me laugh.
So they do eventually just go to commercial. We're going to come back, and Scott Hall's actually going to be in a match with Disco Inferno here. And this is when we find out that WCW Nitro for the PlayStation 1 is now available in stores. This game sucked. This was a bad wrestling game.
What was worse, Nitro or Thunder, which was basically the same game reskinned?
Thunder was better, I think. They actually had a Royal Rumble Battle Royal version, which you could kind of enjoy. It was almost just like an improved version from Nitro. But the best part about anything with those games, with the ones on the PlayStation, is you could actually have the music, and they had some video, which you couldn't get on the N64 games. But the gameplay itself was not fun.
I mean, nothing could hold a candle to the THQ games on Nintendo 64.
Oh, absolutely.
As far as wrestling, especially back then, like that was like the pinnacle of wrestling games.
Oh, they were a blast. As for this match, it was entertaining in some facets. Scott Hall is going to chokeslam Disco Inferno and then kind of mock the Giant and his hurt neck. I thoroughly enjoyed Scott Hall. I've actually really enjoyed Scott Hall during this entire run of Thunder we've been watching so far. He might be right now, since we started watching Thunder, my favorite entertainer of anybody who's been in there. Like, maybe Jericho's right there, because Jericho's had probably some more interesting wrestling matches, but Scott Hall's been just on his game right now. And this match takes a turn, a little bit of a surprise, when he puts Disco up for the Outsider's Edge, and Disco's going to escape and nail the Stone Cold Stunner, or the Chartbuster, as you like to call it. Did anyone see that coming? That he was just going to like cleanly break out of Hall's finisher and hit his own?
I know, and yes, only because Dusty was out there. I think they wanted to give Dusty a spot where he was going to get himself involved. In reality, I don't see Scott Hall losing to Disco Inferno just from like it's Scott Hall. Like, he's not going to lose to Disco Inferno in a match, but because they wanted to make Dusty more heelish, it made sense to have a spot where Hall could have lost. He was just being maybe overconfident, and he gets hit with the finisher, but he was saved barely by Dusty. So I actually kind of like that, but at the same time, it's like I don't think anybody walked into that thinking that Disco had a shot.
Haddix, what do you think about Disco? I don't think we got to talk about this. I think this might have been the day that you had to dip out early. What do you think about Disco Inferno having the Stunner as his finisher?
Dude, I think it's like don't get me wrong, I know a lot of wrestlers reuse moves. I mean, because there's just only a limited amount. But
right. And they're not in the same. They're not in the same company, so it's not like
they're not. They're not.
Which is kind of a big no-no.
And
usually.
Stone Cold added the kick in there. You know what I mean? But it's just so weird seeing such an iconic move done by
Stone Cold after seeing Disco Inferno using it.
Yeah, I mean, Disco Inferno is so smooth, and then Stone Cold,
and then you get that jobber Stone Cold Steve Austin trying to take it.
Yeah, I mean, what a jabroni, dude. I mean, come on, dude.
I know he takes it and gives middle fingers afterwards instead of dancing like it's Saturday Night Fever or something. That said, of course, Scott Hall is going to hit the Outsider's Edge, or as Bobby Heenan said, plant him like a geranium. And that's going to be a 3 count. I'm going to give this match 2 stars, mainly because I kind of like the Giant storytelling from Hall here. And Hall has just been thoroughly entertaining as a heel during this run for me so far. What about you guys? What'd you think about it?
I gave this a 1.5 star. And I know you're going to give me shit, Kiser, but this to me was a pointless match. To what Hoagie literally just said, no one in their right mind thought that Disco Inferno was going to win this match. So it was literally pointless.
Just hang on a second, Kyle. I'm going to give you shit. 1.5 stars. You gave Goldberg Yugi Nagata, which you knew Yugi Nagata was going to job to Goldberg.
Yes,
2 stars. You gave that 2 stars, and you're going to give this 1.5 stars.
So I gave it a 0.5 star more. You guys gave this 1/4 star more than that match. So it's not like you gave this match that much better. But at least in the Goldberg match, they're telling a story of him getting this undefeated streak. So later on, that match actually means something.
In this one, they're telling the story about how Disco Inferno was going to beat Scott Hall if it wasn't for Dusty Rhodes.
Exactly. This match was literally pointless. No one remembers this match. At least the Goldberg match, it's like, oh, God, he won all these matches in a row.
I bet Disco Inferno thinks about, man, I remember that time I hit the chart buster on Scott Hall and nearly won.
I bet you he did. And he's the only one. So that's why I gave this less of him, because at least that match means something in the future. This means absolutely nothing.
So I gave it 2 stars. It was a completely meaningful match. It was a quick match, but once again, the storyline behind this. Look, if you're going to have a promo with Dusty and you're going to put Disco in here, obviously Dusty's going to get involved. This is cementing Dusty's role in the NWO as probably being like another, once again, a valet that's going to get in the way. And Disco is just he was a victim by proxy. And the match itself was fine. I'm also a huge fan of the Outsider's Edge. It's my boy Scott Hall, and I agree with Kiser. Scott Hall this is about as good as before. It's only a couple months from now where I think Scott Hall gets back into a lot lot of pill taking and alcohol drinking. So
yeah, it's unfortunate.
I guess I also give him some more stars because we know that it's only going to slowly decline. So we might as well enjoy him while he has his head on right.
Right. One quick note before we move on. With the whole Wolfpack rules or whatever, why not have Conan in this segment here? He can come out with Dusty. Dusty can cut his promo. Conan can wrestle can wrestle Disco. Disco can almost win against Conan, but Dusty helps him win. And then you still have Hall and Nash wrestling for the titles in the main event.
See, I would have rated that match higher because it would have meant something.
See, I think the reason why is because I think also Hall wanted to come out and have his own promo.
I mean, because of
the whole World War III thing,
that's
introducing
true.
Dusty.
Okay. I'll give you that. I mean, he could still cut his promo before their match, but all right. I'll give you the World War III end of it, but that was my only other thought there. After that, we are going to get our 5th sign of the night. Chris Jericho wears Pampers. So somebody out there calling Chris Jericho a baby. And then
is that what that meant, Kiser? Thanks.
just in case you guys need it. Hey, you know what? These fans in Memphis, I don't know. I'm just speculating anyways. We're going to get our next interview here. It's Mike Tenay with Nick Patrick. And Nick Patrick is going to get on there and basically say how he's been suspended since Starrcade with the Hogan Sting match. And he says he starts bringing up some very good points, like how, have you ever seen 2 referees officiate the same way? Everybody has their own mannerisms and cadences when they're, making a 3 count. And he says he has his count, his cadence. He used it in that match. Bret Hart, out of nowhere, who's not a referee, comes in, basically overturns it and, makes a whole new decision in the match. And he says WCW backs that decision that Bret Hart made and not him, which is a slap in the face to him, to the fans, everything. It desecrates what the belt means. And he says ultimately his lawyers are going to make sure that he is reinstated soon enough, and he's going to throw his hat into the ring to referee that Hogan Sting rematch at Super Brawl. And he says, you're going to find out that I'm not for life, but I am for real. And I have to say, I don't know if it was just
best promo of Thunder.
Yes,
best promo of Thunder.
This promo was fantastic.
It's no Steve Grissom, but it's a pretty good one.
No, I mean, this is right up there with Austin 316 at King of the Ring. It's that promo that you didn't know the guy had.
Damn.
Okay, maybe that. I'll give you that. All right, you saved it by saying he gave a promo that you thought would be a complete waste of time, but end up being very, very good.
And,
iconic. That's iconic.
I would say Nick Patrick is not a good referee, Kyle. You have blasted him for months. When we did the Monday Night Tours.
All right, first of all, let's just make this clear. There hasn't been anybody on the WCW roster. I think they've all been taught in the same shitty school.
Now, to be fair, I think Charles Robinson, since we've been watching Thunder, he's been pretty good.
Well, at the very least, he hasn't been the focus of ire from me.
Right. So Nick Patrick is a bad referee. Dude's got a great promo. I think he needs to be a manager or something like that. Like, he shocked me. This guy he's not a wrestler. He's a referee. He's not supposed to cut promos. He did
wrestle Chris Jericho. If you don't remember when him and Jericho had that
neck thing. I don't know if that's happened yet or not.
Oh, I think it had to have because this was the Lionheart Chris Jericho. This is when he was a face. So yeah, this had to have been before I think that was 97 when. Because you and I watched the pay-per-view.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
It was 97, and that was Bash at the Beach or something like that, I believe. We watched.
So either way, Nick Patrick, props to you. Great promo. We'll have to see if he is going to referee that rematch or not. We'll move on. We got our Saturn versus Booker T television championship match. Booker T going to defend his title. Haddix, you want to know if Booker T has a breathing problem because he's wearing the nasal strip.
It is a nasal strip, dude.
It's a deviated septum, okay?
Hey, either way. He doesn't have it when he's in WWF, I don't think.
True.
You were more curious about that than wondering if whether or not Jeans would go 2-0 tonight in matches.
So Saturn is wearing jeans. Lodi's out here with a couple signs. His first one says Anarchy, and his second one says Kidman, the real luchador, which I kind of agree with that. Kidman is a great cruiserweight when it comes down to it. This match kind of gets blown up pretty early. The Flock's going to come in. They're all going to interfere. Rick Martel is going to come out wearing a jacket like he's a used car salesman. He's going to help Booker T. Saturn's going to get rolled up for the 3 count. Booker T is going to defend the title. This match was over quick. It wasn't very good. I gave it a 1.5 stars. I thought it fell apart early. I'm kind of hoping that they're still pushing this whole Saturn, Rick Martel, Booker T, like kind of 3-way feud. Maybe they're going to have a blow off at Super Brawl, maybe a triple threat for the TV title, but
triangle match.
Yeah, triangle match. Excuse me. Yeah. What did you guys think of this match?
I also gave it a 1.5. I don't understand how people don't get DQ'd when 18 people interfere.
WCW refereeing, man. Yeah, I don't know.
But I mean, either way, I agree with you. Match was mad. The only thing I did enjoy about this is the earliest I've personally seen Booker T. And I mean, you could definitely tell the dude's got some athleticism
and great talent.
It doesn't surprise me. I obviously know where he ends up, and it doesn't surprise me that he got there because he's very athletic, very good.
And also, as far as WCW refs and when DQs are called, these are things where like Hogan can just look at a ref and go, "Hey, this guy was just in here with this weapon." And he's like, "I believe you, Hulkster," and calls for the bell. But at the same time, if somebody comes out with a belt and threatens to use it, they'll also call for the bell. So it's like you never know, man. It's a wisp of wind can cause a DQ, or a Mack truck could just be like, we'll just go ahead and let that just go through. I gave it a 1.75 stars this match. It was fine, but I felt like there was no real like flow to the match. Some decent offense between the two. One thing about Saturn and Booker T, they both have very unique styles of offense that most of the wrestlers don't have. So I think the other reason why I gave it kind of a lower rating is because I know at their peak, I know what they're capable of doing and putting on a good match and doing moves that are like, are worthwhile to watch and be interested in seeing. But the other thing I didn't like about this match was that because the flow was a little bit weird, it went really quickly. This was a TV title match. I also had to rate it a little bit lower because this was not a very good title match overall.
Most of them on Thunder have not been so far.
Well, at least was this a DQ? No, at least it wasn't a DQ though.
Yeah, true. After the match, Rick Martel and Booker T are going to get into it a little bit because Rick Martel thought Booker T took a shot at him. So again, I think it's pushing maybe a potential 3-way triangle match for Super Brawl. That's just sort of a guess, but we'll see as we go forward. After this, we're going to get our second replay of the night. It's showing Macho Man hitting some elbow drops onto Lex Luger. He's getting to the top. He's standing there. Sting flies down from the rafters and hits him, knocks him off the top rope. He's going to then do a couple splashes on Macho Man, lock on the Deathlock, and it's going to show Hogan and Nash basically taunting Macho Man from the outside and not giving him any assistance because he said he wanted to be on his own. So just kind of further pushing that.
I think it was Hall, actually, that was with Hogan.
Was it Hall? I thought it was.
I think it was Hall.
Because I know Nash is not Macho's biggest fan. So I thought it was him. Maybe it was
True.
Hall.
I think it was Hall, though, this time.
Not much more to say about that. Just kind of pushing that NWO dissension storyline. After that, we're going to get what's probably the match of the night. It's Chris Jericho and Eddie Guerrero teaming up against Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko. I loved seeing all four of these guys out there together. Of course, backstage, they're like the four best friends. They did, hung out everywhere, traveled together. They were as close as can be. And it was eerily quiet. I don't know if you guys noticed or not when they were first coming out. They played Jericho's music, his new music, because they played over whatever his WCW music was. The two of them come out. There's nothing said. And then Malenko and Benoit come out. And it's not till, they get to the ring till, Tony says something. And I'm like, it was, 2 minutes of dead quiet. It was so weird. The match itself is, Kyle, I think you put it best because I kind of found the same thing. You put in your notes something along the lines of like, I don't have a lot of notes for this match because I was sitting there just sitting back and enjoying the match and taking it in instead of like jotting things down.
When the match was over, I literally had shout out to Stu Hart as they talk about Calgary natives Benoit and Jericho, and I'm like, shit, I didn't even write anything about this match.
Yeah, the only thing I wrote was when they mentioned that Jericho's chest looked like a shade of Creole not found in the box, because Lee Marshall has all the good quips here. Because that was all I put. I mean, it was fast paced, good tag team action. I mean, they told a good story. They had reversals. Everybody's almost doing finishers. A lot of 3-count breakups, submission breakups. For 4 guys who really aren't known for tag team wrestling, I know Jericho and Lance Storm, when he was coming up in like Memphis, they wrestled as a tag team. But like, I don't think any of the other guys ever had like tag team wrestling in their background, of any long-term deals anyways. They put on, I thought, a great tag team match. Jericho is eventually going to get caught in the crossface by Chris Benoit. He's going to tap to that. I gave this 3 stars. I quite enjoyed it. For the limited time you're going to get on Thunder, these 4 put on a hell of a match.
I gave it 3.5. I think this might be the best match we've seen on Thunder yet in the 4 weeks that it's been on at this point. But yeah, amazing. Everything you said, absolutely amazing. I feel like a tag match that's done right might be more entertaining than a lot of singles matches, just because of the allowed interference. Mind you, if you're in a legit place where they actually call DQs and stuff like that. But yeah, absolutely amazing. Everyone did great. Jericho is an amazing heel, like we've said every week so far.
I think Jericho's had a great match like every week on Thunder.
He really has. It's like the little things, like when he kicks people on the head when they're laying on the ground. Like, he's just such a good heel. And win or lose, everyone wins for this match. No one lost anything. I thought this was amazing.
I almost thought about giving this a higher star only because this is Thunder, and I feel like a 4-star match on Thunder will never ever happen. So it's kind of, you almost got like, it's almost like like you're grading on a curve,
like on a curve,
with how good. So I also gave it 3 stars. However, I think the reason why I do stuff like that too is because like it's hard to give a 4-star match or a 3.5 when we've only seen 4 weeks, and for all we know, we'll find better matches.
There could be better matches a year from now. You don't know, but right.
Exactly. But yeah, I had in here very fast pace, a lot of high risk, a lot of near falls. These were probably these 4 guys, maybe other than obviously the Nate. I would take a power bomb, a pile driver over any of those 4 guys hitting me with a knife edge chop. Every time they do it, it just sounds like the most painful thing you could ever go through. I just wish the match was longer and actually meant something storyline wise. But in the end, it looked like after, we'll talk more about what happens afterwards. But I guess we could say this may have been more of like to make Benoit look good.
Yeah, I mean, Jericho is your Cruiserweight champion. He does beat Rey Mysterio at Sold Out the week before, so I kind of thought he was going to go over here. But instead, he's the one who's actually tapping out to Chris Benoit. And I was questioning it for a minute, but then the post-match interview with Mike Tenay kind of settled things for me. Of course, Chris Benoit did beat Raven as well at Sold Out. He's going to get on there and say, quote the Crippler, nevermore. And then he's going to say, I don't need no belt of gold. Not a strong promo from Benoit. Of course, he was never really known for having a strong promo. Tenay's going to praise him a lot, saying that he thinks that he might be the best wrestler in WCW who has never fought for a major title here.
Disagreed. You and I watched. He had a world title match against Randy Savage in '95.
Back when Nitro had world title matches every night, sort of like how Sick Boy had his title match opening the show, is kind of one of those.
I'm just saying, Professor Mike Tenay, do your fucking homework. Okay,
he should. It's not a Japanese match or Mexican luchadors, Kyle. He's not all in the up and up on it. DDP's going to surprise everybody from the crowd because he is the people's champion. And he said, promoters never saw you as a main eventer. He said that, a lot of people can say the same about me. And he said, since the promoters won't make a match, how about the crowd decides? Then he basically tells the crowd to shut up for a minute and let him finish. Which, it made me laugh. But then he basically says crowd's into it. So next week on Thunder, Chris Benoit, DDP, United States title match. And unlike Sick Boy, Chris Benoit deserved this number 1 contender match. Yes? Agree?
Yeah, yes, I do agree with that.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, Sick Boy may have been on the proverbial roll, as they say.
It's possible. And then they close out the segment by saying Mike Tenay says Chris Benoit is silent but violent. And Haddix, you quipped in your notes, just like Hoagie's farts.
The other thing I wanted to say about the match was when Hoagie commented about the chest chops being the worst. It's like Kiser when he's drunk hitting Hoagie in the chest. So I thought of that during that match too.
I right now I've grown up with a nervous tick whenever I see Matt or Kiser or Bobby or Chad. If anyone getting near me and I hear woos in the background, I'm like, oh fuck, I need to keep gotta cover my chest.
And NWO in the main event, they were covering their chest with those 6-pack shirts on their way in. Of course, they're defending their tag titles. It's Kevin Nash, it's Konnan, it's Wolfpack Rules defending against the Steiner brothers. And to everybody's surprise, Rick Steiner is going to start out this match instead of Scott. Rick's going to bite Konnan at one point during the match, Haddix, which I know you appreciated.
Dude, I loved it.
I don't know if you guys noticed or not, when Konnan got on all fours, lifted his leg, and peed in the direction of Scott Steiner.
I did see that. Yeah.
Of course, a little tease at how Rick Steiner's what do they call him? The Gremlin, Bulldog face Gremlin or something to that. Gremlin face Bull. I forget. Whatever they call him. This match is going to be a lot of Konnan and Kevin Nash back and forth, kind of dominating over Rick. And shortly into the match, Buff Bagwell is going to come out, and him and Scott Steiner are going to get in a little bicep flexing match, which I know, Haddix, was the real main event for you.
Oh, dude. Again, Scott Steiner, nasty biceps. But I love that Buff, I feel like Buff's mocking him a little bit, and that's what I love about it.
Right, and I think you're right. He is doing that here. That distraction from Buff is going to lead to Kevin Nash using the belt, which isn't a good distraction because the ref saw it, and he's going to call it DQ. I kind of found the ending confusing. I kind of also hate that every fucking main event on Thunder ends in a disqualification. I give this a 1.5 stars. I was not pleased with anything in it. I didn't think they really even sold the Scott-Rick Steiner storyline that they've been pushing. But Kyle, you kind of begged to differ, and when I saw what you wrote, I kind of didn't see it that way, but I like what your thought was.
I mean, it looks like at the very least, I like that it started off where Scott is on the side of Rick, but you could tell too that Scott is getting this heel tendency. And first of all, what the hell was he wearing? Like some leather hat to start off with. He actually looked like if Buff Bagwell did a ton of steroids.
Yeah, he does. He looks like steroid Buff Bagwell.
I feel like he's not actually mad or feuding with Buff. I think they're just having fun with each other. Like, it never looks like they're, That's scowling cute. At each other. It looks like they're just kind of, smirking, oh, you got big muscles, look at these muscles. He's like, oh, yeah, well, look at these muscles. And they just kind of go back and forth, just kind of having a good time. But, yeah, I think that he's easily distracted by his own vein, which is what then caused Rick to Rick got the win, but by DQ.
Right. It was an interesting thought there when you said that about him kind of distracted by his own vein. I didn't think about that, but it makes a lot of sense. And if WCW was writing it that way, then props to them.
I can't remember what I gave this originally because I can't find my original notes. But
according to our notes, you didn't give one. I gave a 1.5 stars, by the way.
Yeah, and I think I gave it probably around there as well, just because, again, I agree with everything you guys said. It's the same old DQ stuff. I mean, they do push the storylines along a little bit, but other than that, there's not really a great wrestling match going on. So, other than the Buff part, that was awesome.
Yeah, and after the match, of course, Charles Robinson's going to yell at Nash for using the belt. This is going to lead to Nash using the jackknife powerbomb to Charles Robinson. So props to Little Nate for taking the powerbomb.
Well, he kind of stops halfway, right? Doesn't he? Don't they make a comment on the? Don't the commentators make a comment like, "Oh, well, he dropped him instead of doing it" or something like that?
Well, I mean, that's Nash does that to little people. He just picks them up and kind of lets them go.
To little people.
I always said that's what the jackknife was. The jackknife was he picks them up for the power bomb, but instead of kind of throwing them down, kind of like a Sid Vicious or an atom bomb power bomb, where it's kind of one fluid motion of picking up, flipping the guy on his back, and then dropping him. Nash just picks the guy up as high as he can, and then just releases him at the highest point. And just lets him just basically land on his shoulders and back of the neck. That's always thought was the difference between the jackknife and the regular power bomb.
Oh, well, I actually just Wikipedia'd it. A normal powerbomb, which is ended when the wrestler flipping or rolling forward into a bridge with a jackknife hold. Not to be confused with Kevin Nash's finisher, referred to the jackknife powerbomb, but is actually a release powerbomb. Which a release powerbomb, a variation of powerbomb where the opponent is lifted in the air, then dropped without being forced into a pin. A la Nash, Vader, Benoit, Sid, Lita, Sarah Del Rey, Gunner, and JBL used this move, and it was famously used by Sable as a Sable bomb. So, do they only call it the Jackknife Powerbomb because he was Diesel, and Jackknife is a Diesel-related, like a semi-related comment? Like,
are they saying that the only difference between a normal powerbomb and the I guess the Jackknife is that I guess they said the normal powerbomb is they pick him up and then the guy goes down with him to pin? That's considered a powerbomb?
A normal powerbomb, which is no, that's the
like a Batista bomb type of deal.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of powerbomb variations on.
We'll ask Nash. We'll get Nash on the podcast next week. We'll ask him.
Yeah, we'll do that. That said, Nash might not be around on Thunder next week because he is going to get arrested as security comes out there. And Nash makes a few great comments. First is make sure Jack Ruby isn't hanging out in the back, which made me laugh. You may or may not remember Jack Ruby, of course, is the one who kills Lee Harvey Oswald during the whole Kennedy assassination ordeal when he's being transported away. And then he basically says he's a patsy, and then I think he's looking for Hollywood, of course, to bail him out here. And that is going to be your Thunder. Haddix, what did you think about this week's episode?
I didn't think it was as good as last week. I feel like a lot of matches are... I probably could have picked the winner of every match, so there's nothing real crazy. Other than that match with Jericho and all them, it was all pretty much by the books. Not horrible, but not great.
Hoagie, what about you?
I don't think it was a bad Thunder. I mean, the one last week was a go home show, so I think they really had to kind of like put a ribbon on the storytelling going into the main event. So I think that was a little bit more important. Obviously, the best match of the last 2 weeks was the tag match. So I guess you got hang your hat on this week for having a very good quality match. But yeah, I think the problem was. I just wish that we would at least for once have a worthwhile main event. I think that's always been my biggest complaint so far is that maybe they're trying to tell a story, but I would love to see an actual conclusion to matches. And also the sad thing is I think right now half of the Thunder main events have been for a title, and they have not amounted to jack squat.
Yeah, I agree. The main events have not been good. This Thunder was probably middle of the pack for the 4 we watched. I wasn't crazy about most of the matches outside of that tag match for the most part. And when your promo of the night is held by Nick Patrick, that show might not be the best. And none of the big, most of the big stars weren't on this week. So hopefully next week is a little bit better. But that said, that is our show this week. If you haven't subscribed to us yet, I'm sure we're on iTunes and Google Play by this point. You can find us there. You can always go to thundercrap.com for all of our previous episodes.
By the way, I'm just making sure everyone understands. It's Thundercraps.
Craps.
Thundercraps.com.
Okay, yes. There we go. I don't even know what it is. We are on Twitter then at Thundercraps, and we will be back next week. So go watch the February 5th, 1998 editions of Thunder, and we will be back to review it then. So for Stagger Lee, Kyle Hoagland, that People's Champion, Josh Haddix, I am Josh Kiser, and we will see you next time on the Thundercraps podcast.
See you later.
See ya.